Okay.
Hi, Commissioner Roach.
How are we doing, Lieutenant?
Good, good.
Good.
Commissioner Kumanato's having a little bit of technical trouble. He said if we wanted to start, to go right ahead. He was not sure if he's able to connect, so I just resent him the link.
Okay. Commissioner Farrow, is he available this evening or no?
I have not heard from him. I believe he, may be a few minutes late, so.
Okay, all right, very good. Okay, let's get started then. We'll call this special board meeting of the Honorable Board of Police Commissioners to order, and roll call of commissioners. Commissioner Cruz.
Here.
Commissioner Diaz.
Here.
Commissioner Lyons.
Here.
And Commissioner Roach is present. We have a quorum. At this time, please observe a moment of silence for retired police officer Daniel Garcia, who passed away Tuesday, October 31st. May you rest in peace. Next item will be acceptance of the minutes of the regular board meeting, which was held on October 17th. Any corrections, questions, comments?
No.
Hearing none.
So moved.
Commissioner Cruz, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Move to
For the
accept.
minutes. Yes,
Okay.
move to accept.
Motion's been made to accept. Is there a second?
Second.
Is all those in favor?
Aye.
Are there any
Aye.
opposed? Okay. For the record, Commissioner Farrow has joined us. And with that, we will move on to reports. And first up is the Chief of Police. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening. How are you all?
Good, Chief.
Awesome, awesome. Well, proud moment for the Bridgeport Police Department. We are officially accredited, an accredited police department. About a week and a half ago, post consul met, and after successfully completing our audits and going through all the different processes, we are an accredited department. We're looking forward to continuing and going up to the next steps to make sure that we are aligning with our transparency, having policies online, having open view on our website of our policies, different ideas that we're putting out, different contact purposes, contact numbers. So I think that that's a huge plus for the city and for the police department. It's been a 4-year venture that was picked up and left and then picked up again. And then we were able to push it through and have successful completion. And I definitely have to give kudos to Lieutenant Cotto, who has worked relentlessly on this effort. And of course, the PD who has we've all jumped in, the officers signing their policies, signing off on their policies, etc. Another positive for the police department is that we were afforded a grant for $195,000. Operation Wingspan is what we're calling this initiative. It's a local auto theft task force with area departments such as Stratford, Trumbull, Fairfield, Newtown, Monroe, and Westport. We know that there has been an uptick in car thefts and juveniles associated with these car thefts, and then moving on to violent crimes that have been associated with these matters. So part of that grant, or the grant, is afforded to address the juveniles and the crimes that are going on with stolen cars, and then other things that have kicked off because of that. What this allows us to do is be able to not only go out and collect the cars, but be able to push for swabbing of the vehicles if they're recovered, and help with the investigative processes on that, which I think is definitely a huge push forward. And this grant money obviously has to be utilized by the end of December this year. So I will tell you that the numbers have been very impressive. The detail has been in force maybe about a week or so, and they've collected over 24 cars already, and have one of the cars that was collected, actually I think 3 of them were out of Fairfield, and one also that was collected with a person was a suspect in a robbery in Stratford. So it's going very well. And like I said, the collaboration with the other departments has been fantastic. And I will also say, going over to the juvenile side, we had talked in the past about an intent that we wanted to do an initiative. We wanted to have, we can't call it a call-in, because a call-in is strictly with Project Longevity with adults. But we are doing a collaboration with the juvenile probation and the courthouses, and we're looking at some of the youth that may be maybe going off into the wrong direction, right? And we want to do what's called a juvenile outreach. And it's being able to have juveniles that are on the radar for probation, maybe juveniles that we have had numerous incidents with, and having what the outreach is to have their parent with them present and be able to just sit down and have a talk, in a group setting, and show resources that are available to the juveniles, to their family members, to see how we can intervene and be a positive impact in trying to assist them with going on the right path. So I think that's going to be a definite plus. We're supposed to be meeting with the juvenile probation, as I said, and the juvenile prosecutor as well. And that should be kicking off within the next couple of weeks as well. We gave a lieutenant's test Last week, it was a 2-day test, and it was, I believe it was Wednesday and Saturday. One was scenario based, one day was scenario based, and the Saturday was the written portion of the test. Believe we had 27 sergeants take the test. We are short lieutenants, and I look forward to the results and being able to do some movement within the department for the rank of lieutenant. The next one that I will be pushing for is the rank of captain. And I'm hoping that that would happen either by the end of the year or next year. We're also looking to try to have a class. We've been approved by Post to have a recruit class, hopefully by November of this year. As you all know, the numbers for officers, not only within the city of Bridgeport, it's happening everywhere. I have conversations with local chiefs, area chiefs on a continuum about the transition of officers from one department to the other, retirements, etc. So we are looking to hopefully get a class in to the academy, our academy, for November. Speaking of training, we have, in the past, we've talked about the interest of Post having us host it's called D2C, it's dedication to community, is a training class, not only for law enforcement, but for community members as well. And obviously we would have to be strategic in offering the class because of COVID. It's not only going to be for Bridgeport, though we are the host agency, but we're looking at other departments that may want to come up with different ideas and different impacts on building relationships with the community, fortifying or solidifying relationships with the community. I already have one party that I've spoken with, Reverend Lord, is interested in attending the class. And if anyone from the Board of Police Commissioners is interested, I'd be happy to afford a seat for that training. It's going to be on January 25th. It's a full day class. It's from 8 to 4. The gentleman that put this program together is very well known. He's done it in other areas, not just Connecticut. And he swears by the class that it opens doors. It opens doors to build stronger relationships, and I welcome it. So we are going to be offering that class. Looks like January 25th at Sacred Heart University is going to be at the host venue for that. Speaking of training, our training academy, the officers have been quite busy in acquiring additional certification in areas like Blue Courage and fair and impartial training. They have taken train-the-trainer courses to not only offer to our officers, but our recruit officers once they walk into the door as well. On Saturday, we also had our last event for the summer, the One Bridgeport event, which was an theme that we put together, that I put together to be able to offer the community the understanding of what resources we have available, how we want to continue to interact with our resource partners and be able to offer that to the community. So we have resources such as the substance use, mental health, faith-based issues, being able to offer Narcan training for the community, as well as faith-based locations. And we had Siri on board. They were doing pieces on human trafficking and sex trafficking and the workplace, Project Longevity. I mean, we had a whole host of partners that were with us, and it's not, so this was just the first 4 events. Then we're going to expand it to other resources so that we can continue having this information readily available to the community and letting the community know that there are resources and partnerships that we have that they should know about, just in case they would ever need it. So we did have 4 events. We joined in with the Touch a Truck event this weekend, which was very successful. We were able to give out many things, especially for children, pens, pencils, things for back to school. Everybody was pretty much on board. It was nice to see the community come out and engage. And we are going to be putting a list of our partners and resources that are available to the PD, or partnerships that we do have resources for the community. We're going to be putting them on our website and contact persons, so that's also a plus for the community. And I think that's all I have right now. If anybody has any questions. And I do know, Commissioner Roach, that we had the issue over the weekend with the dirt bikes. If you saw, there was a very large number over in New Haven as well. You were still struggling with the fact that of the rules and the standards established regarding dirt bikes, and trying to come up with different ideas. I mean, we had a task force. They're kind of addressing other matters at this time, but we do know that it is a concern and we are staying on top of it. And we are also having Commissioner Lyons, the traffic division, come out addressing the trailers. I know that they came out and they tagged quite a large number, and it was agreed that they would do it again. There are stipulations as to when they can be tagged and the areas, but they did address, I want to say the first time they went out, I want to say it was 30 trailers that they tagged, and then it came up again. So they were going to come out on the weekend again and address that matter.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions for the chief from the board members?
Yeah, I'd like to address the chief. Yes, thank you, Chief, for stepping up on those trailers issues. I did talk to someone in the mayor's office, and they said that there were quite a few that were tagged on that one evening or weekend.
Mhm.
I still notice more, but again, I guess you can continue with that effort. One point I wanted to make, like we have mild winters and rough winters, this Sacred Heart class of 2021 coming in has been a bit of a tough go with the departing on the weekends and during the night. We're getting a lot of calls, not just in the 134th district, but the 135th, the 133rd, and the 132nd. Students, I guess, were crammed or off campus or home for much of the last year or so because of COVID, but they seem to be coming out in droves recently. I know we've had some nice weather to have backyard parties and such, but I'd like to see the infraction procedure policy stepped up. Breaking up the parties just sometimes doesn't cut it. They just reload with more beer and do it again the following weekend or following day. I did speak to Captain Porter myself today. He did say that there was a meeting at City Hall that he would look to increase the infraction, giving the students infractions for these parties. Neighbors are getting extremely frustrated. We're getting calls at my home at 1-2 o'clock in the morning because the music's loud and there's 200 kids roaming up and down streets in just the upper northern and eastern north end. Anything you can do to add more police. I do realize you're short 80 officers, and it isn't cumbersome to be chasing party goers, but there's neighbors that are just not given their fair due as taxpayers, just dealing with, we're not talking 24 kids with a keg, we're talking 200 in a neighborhood household with just no regard for property or noise or anything. And we're not talking 9-10 o'clock at night. These parties start at midnight. They continue on until the wee hours of the morning. And then when they break up, it's even worse. I'll let you comment.
Sure, absolutely. So one thing that I didn't touch base on that I'm glad you brought that up is the fact that we have added an additional, so our strategic enforcement, what I do is I run a strategic enforcement detail primarily on the weekends, several days of the week. And And I have added an additional two. And those two are strictly for the Sacred Heart area, and they collaborate with the actual detail that the school hires as well. So we have added two additional officers to that detail, and I have impressed upon the captains that we want the issue addressed appropriately. It seems like the showing up and just breaking up the party is not working, because when the officers leave,
Right.
they're coming back. And obviously my concern is for the quality of life of the persons that live in the area as well. And not for nothing, but the students as well, because if they're going to these parties, it's breaking out at all hours of the night, then that is a safety concern as well. And I will tell you that the detail for I'm trying not to give out too much information, right, regarding what days and stuff, but the hours for that detail run from 12 o'clock at night or 12 o'clock in the morning to 4 o'clock in the morning. And that was just a force multiplier to address the concerns that are happening specifically with the class that seems to have just gone in, because seems like COVID kind of kept them in house, as you said. They're out full force. But I agree. And I will also tell you that the mayor's office is putting together a task force to address the concerns regarding the issues that we're experiencing up there. And part of the +2 was to help out with that matter.
Hey, any other questions for the chief?
Danny, if Chief, I'd be interested in doing that January 25th class.
Okay,
If you want to send out any information to me, I would be interested.
awesome. Okay, I will definitely send that out to you. Mhm.
Thank you.
Good.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you, chief.
Thank you all.
I believe we have Brad Seeley is on the meeting. We're going to hear from the union.
I don't see
Oh,
him.
There he is. Okay.
Oh, okay, very good.
Hi, Commissioners. How are you this evening?
Evening.
How are you?
I just have a few short, quick things for you this evening. Just to recap, for September, on the 14th, we had our annual Gerald T. DeJoseph Golf and Memorial Tournament. That was a very successful tournament. That tournament is obviously in memory of the last police officer that was killed in the line of duty here in Bridgeport in 1980. We actually have family members of that officer that currently work here. So not only is it important to us, on that aspect, but it was very successful on that day. We had over 100 golfers approximately that attended. Many people attended the dinner. And I just wanted to take this time to thank the many sponsors and the people of the community who actually supported our tournament. There were many, many people who supported it in just volunteering their time, but also, volunteering things and donating things for the raffles. This scholarship is important because this is a way that our union actually gives back to the community. And this year we'll be giving out a scholarship for each high school. So, as we continue to get all of our numbers, we'll be able to figure out how we'll be able to best support, some of our members in our community. So again, I just wanted to honestly thank the business owners, the people that did support us. We've had council people support us and commissioners. So, my honest thanks to all of you for such a successful event and a good tournament. We are looking at getting 2 plaques. This was a project that was started about 2.5 years ago, prior to my arrival. Here is the president. We have a plaque for Terry Flood and a plaque for Daniel Demkowski. Those will be placed on the police memorial probably within the next 30 days. And we are looking at having some type of dedication ceremony. So please stay tuned. I'll make sure that each and every one of you gets an invite for that. But that is important because both of those members, while they didn't pass in the line of duty, they passed as a result of the injuries that they sustained while being police officers here working in this community. I am certainly glad that I heard from the chief regarding the possible upcoming academy. Obviously, being 80 officers short, that is a concern, you know, to all of us who work here. In today's day and age, we are not getting the applicants that we've seen in the past. And I guess in my response to that is there are many of our officers who just do not feel supported by the city, by the administration, as a result of some of the things that have been happening lately. Something as simple as the response to the HEROES Act. Many of our workers have been here all through COVID. They've worked day in and day out tirelessly. These letters have been sent out to the council. They've been sent out and addressed with the mayor, and we've received nothing back. So I will be a little honest. I'm a little disappointed at the response and the time frame that all of this has taken, considering the amount of money that has been allocated to the city of Bridgeport. And the officers, these officers that are still here, that have stayed here and dedicated their time and their service and decided that they're going to stay in this department and not go somewhere else. Well, these are the people who should be recognized. As a part of recognizing our officers, I'd also like to address that last month, we had 2 officers who were just going to a standard call, and they both were fired upon. So, I would like to express, number one, my gratitude for their willingness to go out and do the job. And then a lot of people say, well, that's the job they chose. You're right. That is the job they chose. But it's certainly different when you come on as a brand new rookie, and in the first 3 months, you have bullets ringing by you. And now that's when you really understand it is a different job. It's not a 9-to-5 job. It is not a job that we go to an office and we sit there every day. And I am certainly indebted to our officers. I'm thankful that they give me the opportunity to speak up on their behalf. And I certainly would like to see that our officers start to be recognized more often. And I know the chief has always tried to do that. But again, our officers are down as a result of a lot of things that have happened lately. They are under a high amount of stress every single day, and they are being judged every single day for every word they say, for every move they make, and for every decision they make. So I certainly, would ask for any support from this commission going forward, even on simple little things. I think that's all I have for now. Thank you for your time. And I know we'll be together again, probably early next month. Thank you. If there's any questions, feel free to ask. Thank you.
Any questions for the union president?
No, just thank you. On behalf of the police commission, we really are grateful for the officers that are out on our streets, doing the best they can to keep our constituents safe, our community safe.
Thank you, Commissioner Cruz.
Thank you, brother.
I'd like to ask a question, Commissioner Roach,
Please go right ahead, Commissioner Farrell.
Sergeant Sealy. So my question is, when that happens, those officers that you're referring to, is there any kind of counseling or anything that takes place after that? I have to imagine that that causes a lot of trauma and stress. And I don't know how, I mean, officers deal with this day in and day out, and I'm sure that plays on them when they go out into the field and how they interact with people over time. So I'm just trying to figure out, how do we deal with that as a department when officers are going through those kinds of experiences? And also, it sounds like they were shot at or shot upon, but they weren't actually hit. So that's a good thing. But if you can answer that question for me, because that is definitely something I'm concerned about, the mental health of our officers.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Farrow. So obviously, anytime there's some type of critical incident like this, there always are services offered to the employee. We offer EAP assistance, things like that. We also have officers that are actually trained who have been through incidences like this that they're actually part of the critical incident team. And actually, the chief could probably tell you a little bit more about that, because she spearheaded that team many years ago in being able to respond to and assist our officers. So they're brother and sister officers who are here and able to actually help the officers get through that. A lot of times they don't realize what happened until later on, and the effects are not right then and there. The effects are later on, after they think about what really actually did happen. And every officer handles it differently. And sometimes, like I said, they handle it not immediately. These things could come up years later to actually bother these officers. I'd like to think that a lot of our officers rely on one another. And they're able to talk to each other, because, some of these incidences, they don't happen in every town. They just don't. We're a very big city. There's a high call volume, and they are expected, and we expect them as supervisors to handle it, go to the next call, handle it, right? But I can tell you that the union does have another resource for them. Oftentimes we found officers in the past, they don't trust the EAP system. They don't trust the employee, assistance program, which is understandable. So, we offer other resources outside, because the last thing we want is officers to be burdened with the thoughts and memories of a traumatic incident or anything like that. They also have the ability to seek treatment, right? They can seek treatment under the PTSD bill that was formed, I think, about 2 years ago. And we oftentimes are encouraging our officers that, look, you don't have to be afraid. You will not get penalized for seeking help. We want you to get help. So they have those different options. So again, it's, they can seek it through workman's comp for up to a year. They could seek it through the CIT professionals that are trained here within the police department, and they can also get assistance through employee assistance program, or they can get it through an outside agency, or go through their own private insurance.
Thanks, Sergeant. And so one of my concerns, and you brought it up, and thanks for raising it, as far as the concerns about going to EAP and everything else. And I was just trying to figure out how the department is handling that concern, so that officers get what they actually need, because staying away from getting help is not benefiting the officer or the people they come into contact with every single day. And so this has been a concern for mine for a very long time. And I'm glad that there's some kind of internal ways to deal with it, but it's definitely an issue that's been at the forefront of my mind as far as how officers interact with the community, with each other, and then how they deal with their own trauma and everything else. And so definitely is a much bigger conversation to be had about it. And I don't want to belabor everyone at this point, but I was curious when you brought it up in this particular meeting. So hopefully we can have a bigger discussion on it to help our officers and our community. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Can I say something in regards to that? May I address that?
Right ahead, Chief.
Thank you. So Sergeant Seeley is correct. We try to do everything for our officers and have them go to a place where they are comfortable if they feel that they need it. I think their supervisors know to monitor if there are any changes. If they come up to them and tell them, hey, I need someone to talk to. I was at that incident right after the incident. Well, the shots were fired. I was contacted. I went to the hospital to see one of the officers who had injured his leg. And then on scene, I spoke with the other officer and talked to her at length and wanted to make sure that she was okay. And as Sergeant said, it might not have an impact on you at that time, but sometimes when you go home and you're like, what just happened? Or you're talking to your family, you see that it can come back and impact them. Obviously, it's not the norm. People don't normally go somewhere and expect to get shot at, right? The person was taken into custody. Unfortunately, it was a double homicide that was associated with that incident, not while the officers were on scene, but earlier during the day. But the party was taken into custody. So that is correct, that there is a peer support team in-house that can be, they reach out to the officers. Hey, are you okay? If you need somebody to talk to, do you want to have a cup of coffee? Things of that nature, which I think is very positive because the officers, most of the time, right, we look to each other to vent or just to talk. EAP is always available. They come in on critical incidents as well. And we also have the SMART program that we introduced at our training academy. Is the stress management and resiliency training for first responders, which is something that we've put on our curriculum for officers because of officer wellness. If we're not okay, then we're not going to be okay with the people that we're dealing with, right? And I think that's a huge concern. And this is the curriculum that I implemented in the academy with our recruit classes as well. We were the first PD and the first academy in the state of Connecticut that implemented this as part of the curriculum for our new officers so that they know the resources available to them and they understand when something, when they might not automatically say this is bothering me or this had an impact on me, but they can look at the signs, the telltale signs, go down the line, maybe a month down the line, or maybe when they hear, if it was a shots fired incident, they hear a loud noise or go to the next one and then feel that, wait a minute, something just happened, something just triggered that event that happened before. So officer wellness is definitely important and is definitely on our radar with the Bridgeport Police Department and making sure that our officers are okay, their families are okay, and that community we serve are okay as well.
Sergeant, anything else? Any other questions for the union president? No?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
You too, Brad.
Commissioner Roach.
For the record, Commissioner Cuminato is with us.
Thank you.
Commissioner. I'd like to go out of order. Again, we have several folks that are on the meeting this evening, and they would like to address the board. So I'm going to move to item 4A, which is a request from Mr. Richard Vazek. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
To address the board regarding a traffic request, which is a multi-way stop sign at Anton Street and Edgemore Road / Greenhouse Road and Anton Drive. Before I turn it over to Mr. Vazek, Lieutenant O'Donnell, where is this request in the pipeline? Do you happen to know?
Okay, we tabled this matter in August. Mr. Vasic was not able to attend. We tabled it to September. And so here we are now.
Okay.
The matter, as far as the traffic the traffic calming humps. And his request was denied by the traffic engineer for a multi-way stop engineering review at Anton and Edgemore Greenhouse and Anton Drive. And I've had several conversations with Mr. Vasic and emails trying to come up with good resolutions with the traffic engineer and the department. And that's why he is here tonight to address you with some more other possible solutions.
Very good. With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Vasic. Sir, floor is yours.
How are you? Thank you. Yeah, I'm kind of new here. You can see me and hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I tabled my application for 30 days because I wanted to wait till the students came in, because there's 6,000 Sacred Heart students, and if only 20% of them drive, that's another 1,000 cars coming through the neighborhood. Since school started, the traffic volume has really increased a lot, even more. So I'm glad I waited. I moved to Anton Street about 10 years ago, and the chief of police talks about resources for residents. Well, I moved there because I was working for Life Bridge Community Services. We were running after school programs for at-risk youth in Bridgeport. So I did that for 12 years while working with Bridgeport youth. So maybe that'll help me score some points here today. I don't know. But before that, most of my background, I was a supervisor. I worked for the city of Milford. I was supervisor in the parks and the public works department. Then I was zoning enforcement officer in Milford. Anton Street is an unusual street. It's a very wide right of way. It's flat, mostly straight. There's no trees on the road. Very few cars parked there. And it's a major connector between Main Street and Madison Avenue artery. And if you look at the environment of the road, it's wide open. So it's perfect for driving fast, and everybody does drive fast on that road. Now, I look at speeding a lot of ways as quality of life issues. It's a safety issue, but it's also a quality of life issue. Now, I do have a problem with that because the most important thing in my life is my quality of life. And quality of life phone calls to the police department are low priority. Now, that's pretty amazing. We're on two different sides of the spectrum. What's most important to me is low priority to the police. That's what causes a ton of problems, because all these things that go on in my neighborhood, between the loud parties, the speeding, the barking dogs, the loud radios, and the little kid around the corner with the car with the cutoff muffler who terrorized our neighborhood for 10 months, nothing's regulated. Well, let me put it another way. Some things are regulated, okay? But in general, it's kind of a free-for-all, okay? That's what's going on where I live. It's like a free-for-all. When it comes to speeding down Anton Street, it's a free-for-all. You can do whatever you want to do. Now, I've lived there for 10 years, and I'll be really honest with you. In that 10-year period, I never once saw a police officer pull a car over. That's amazing. That's amazing. 10 years, I never once saw one car pulled over. How many hundreds of thousands of cars sped past my house in 10 years? I don't know. Okay. So here's the problem where I live. All right. There's not much of a police presence. They're just not around. Okay. Now the police drive down Anton Street. They have their windows rolled up. Then they go by. And then maybe you see them again. They drive by. The windows are rolled up. Okay. Nobody's being proactive. You can't be proactive if your windows are rolled up because you're in your own little environment. You can't hear anything. Okay. And once again, there's no presence. So, like on Anton Street here, I'm not asking for the world here. Okay. I'm not asking for the police department to go out to Anton Street and live there. You don't have to live there. But what I am looking for is some presence of some kind, even if it's a few hours a week. Okay. Because everybody out there is doing whatever they want to do. And the speeding on Anton Street is violent. It's violent speeding. Okay. Not everybody speeds, but when it is, it's violent. These people are flying down this road and there's nobody doing anything about it. Okay. So that's what we need to do here. It's like I talked to a sergeant on Sunday on the side of the road, and he said, well, yes, we do have a traffic detail. He says, I think they're on Boston Avenue or something like that. I don't expect you to live up there, but you really, really, really have to bring some police up there and show the people in that neighborhood that there is a police department. Okay? You have to show there's a police department. That's what I'm asking here tonight. You don't have to give me 100%. You don't have to give me 50%. You don't have to give me 30%. You can give me 10% and I'll be happy. Just to show up once in a while and try and show people we have police here and we're going to control this street. You're not going to control this street. Okay. So that's really the bottom line. Now, from the engineering department, they have two options. One, they could put a whole bunch of obstacles down the road, stop signs, speed bumps, everything, jam up the whole road. Well, they're not going to do that. Okay. They're just not going to do that. And I wouldn't want them to do that. So the other option is we open up the road and let the traffic move through. That's what they want. They want the traffic to move through. Well, what happens there is then people speed. So the engineering department is basically out of the picture here. Okay. Now it's the police department. The police department has all the tools. They have all the influence. They have all the power to change human behavior. Okay. They can cause inconvenience. They can cause people to spend money. Tickets, points on their license, the cost of their insurance. They've got it all. Okay. So that's that. Now, one reason I'm bringing this here by myself is because I worked in Milford. I was a zoning officer. I kind of know how to do these things. There's no reason for me to drag 65 people in here to just say, yes, they speed on Anton Street. So that's why I'm here by myself. That is really all I have to say here. Now, I understand. I mean, I understand the police. They're understaffed. I understand that. They might even be overwhelmed. I don't know. They might be overwhelmed. I actually called dispatch yesterday and I talked to the head of dispatch because I wanted to know. I wanted to know, are the police sleeping in Bridgeport? And she said, no, they're not. She said they're going on calls all the time. They clear the call. They go on the next call. So apparently they're very busy. Okay. Maybe even overwhelmed, like I said. But from my end of it, we may not be a hot spot. We may be a warm spot. Okay. But the people in the warm spot pay taxes too. Okay. And I think if everybody's going to the hot spots, that's not right. We need some police in the warm spots too, to improve the quality of life where I live. The only thing I want to say other than that is you talk about the students, problems with students and parties. When we were in zoning, what we used to do is we wouldn't bother chasing students. We'd go after the owner of the property. So I wouldn't even chase the students. I'd just find the owner. Once the owner gets fined, he's going to go talk to people he's renting to and say, you got to straighten out your act here because you're costing me money. So I just wanted to say something about that. And what else here? Well, the other thing is, yeah, you people, you have some fantastic police officers. I had an officer come to my house one day. He was a young kid. He's probably 26 years old. He told me he had a master's degree in criminal justice. This was a regular patrolman. I was like, oh my God, isn't that something? But then on the other hand, I was up at the park the other day and I saw this woman running a summer program. And I went over, I talked to her. She was young. She was 25, 26-year-old woman. And when I was talking to her, I said, well, she's really smart, this girl. She's really sharp. She's like really impressive. And I said, is this what you do? And she said, I used to be a police officer in Bridgeport, but I left. And I was like, wow. So, I mean, you know, you all know these things are going on. And, you know, this is a girl who obviously dedicated her young self to going through the work, to becoming a police officer. And within 3 years, she just left. I just want to pass that story on because that's
Sir,
really.
I think we get the message loud and
Okay.
clear. But getting back to Anton Street, if we could, I do have a question for the department clerk. You're saying the city traffic engineer came back with a negative reply. Is there any way of ascertaining when he did his traffic study? I know the gentleman mentioned how the kids are back in school now. So if it was done over the summer, as opposed to if you ran one while the school is in session, it seems like there might be a little bit of difference in the result of the study. Would you mind checking with the city traffic engineer to ask him when that study took place?
Sure, that was one of the conversations that Mr. Vasic and I had over the summer on the phone and through emails. And so I will pick that up, asking, as I've done in previous requests that he's denied, to give us a little bit more factual information and to re-examine this area on Anton and Edgemore during, you know, the increased activity of Sacred Heart. So I will send back that new proposal tomorrow to him.
Okay. Any of the commissioners have any questions for the gentleman? No. Okay, sir.
Comment?
If you'd like to make one last comment, please feel free to do so.
I understand where the engineering department is coming from because I called engineering and I talked to Paulo, the traffic engineer. So I understand where they're coming from. And they like to have traffic move through the area. And there's so much traffic on Anton Street that probably, I know I'm the one that asked for stop signs, but probably if you go stop signs, you go speed bumps, it's going to jam up the traffic quite a bit. That's just my opinion after thinking about it a little more.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. We have several other folks that would like to address the board. So we're going to move to item 4B, which is a request from Council Member Maria Pereira and a list of others who I will probably ask to address this one at a time. This is regarding a handicap parking sign request at 77 Louisiana Avenue. So we'll start with Council Member Pereira.
Good evening, Commissioner, Chairman Roach and Commissioners. First, I'd like to let you know that Jessica Ortiz Menchaca will not be on the call tonight. She is not feeling well.
Okay.
And number two, I would ask that you be really sensitive to Barbara Werner, Mary Goss, and Mr. Fulton. They are seniors who don't know anything about Zoom. Two of them don't even have email addresses, so they're calling on phones. So I just ask you to be sensitive to that, okay? And then I'd like to read my statement into the record. I would like to speak in opposition to the traffic engineer's denial of a handicap parking space on Minnesota Avenue requested by one of my constituents residing at 77 Louisiana Avenue, located within Eastwood condominium. Both Barbara Werner and John Williams are the unit owners of 77 Louisiana Avenue. Barbara Werner's sister, Mary Goss, and her significant other, James Fulton, are tenants, with all four occupying the unit. 77 Louisiana Avenue only receives one parking permit, which the unit owners utilize. And I'm going to explain to you why that's relevant. Mr. Fulton is not an Eastwood condominium unit owner. Therefore, neither the board of directors nor the property manager have any obligation to him, as they are elected and hired to serve unit owners, not tenants. Mr. Fulton does not even have the right to request a handicap parking space, because each unit only receives one parking permit, which is being used by the actual property owners. You may recall that on June 30th, 2020, and just 4 days later on July 3rd, 2020, it was well publicized on News 12 and the Connecticut Post that the Upper East Side experienced unprecedented and historic flooding on all what we call the state streets, with Minnesota, Virginia, Louisiana, Pennsylvania, and Ohio experiencing unprecedented flooding, where residents lost their vehicles, furnaces, hot water tanks, washing machines, dryers. In fact, some basements had as much as 4 feet of water in them. Barbara Werner and John Williams lost 2 vehicles because they simply parked their vehicles too close to Minnesota Avenue. They were forced to purchase a new vehicle, which is parked in the Eastwood condominium off-street parking lot, utilizing the one parking permit allotted to their unit, 77 Louisiana Avenue. Mr. Fulton is the applicant, who provided a copy of his handicap placard with his application. Although the unit is officially located at 77 Louisiana Avenue, the on-street handicap sign was requested on Minnesota Avenue, which abuts the rear entrance exit of 77 Louisiana Avenue and provides a much shorter walking distance than from the front entrance of the unit onto Louisiana Avenue. In addition, Minnesota Avenue only houses a duplex, Eastwood condominium, and Binny's Pizzeria, and is a dead end. The duplex has a long driveway on either side of it. The vast majority of those that park on Minnesota Avenue overnight are Eastwood condominium residents that have more than one vehicle, which means they must park on the street or face being towed by Eastwood condominium. Mr. Fulton is 73 years of age, has COPD, has had a stroke, and has had a disc removed from his spine, which requires him to now utilize a cane and or walker. It is my understanding, and based on the letter submitted by the traffic engineer, the application for the handicap parking space on Minnesota Avenue was denied because Eastwood Condominiums has off-street parking. You should know that Eastwood Condominium was built on a swamp in the 60s as an apartment complex, when many adults did not even own one vehicle, never mind multiple vehicles in a household. Therefore, when they built Eastwood Condominium, there's not even one parking space for every unit. There are 114 units at Eastwood Condominium, and there are not even 114 parking spaces. And to further exacerbate the problem, you have Nob Hill Condominium right next to Eastwood Condominium, right next to the Huntington Turnpike high-rise condominium. So you have about 300 units of condominium units. You have 300 condominium units on Virginia, Louisiana, and Minnesota. Not a single one of them has a visitor parking, and all of them allow one car per unit in their private, their on-site parking lots. So what happens is it forces massive amounts of cars onto street parking because you have these large clusters of condos, which in that era didn't require, reasonable amount of parking spaces. Each unit receives one parking permit with all other vehicles required to park on the street. And that's for all 3 condos, which abut each other, which are right next to each other. So allowing one parking space per unit with 0 visitor parking at any of those 3 condominium complexes has just exacerbated the on-street parking situation in the immediate neighborhood. In closing, although Ordinance 10-30-030 criteria for establishment for handicap parking it does list 5 criteria that you as commissioners should take under consideration, and that's the key word. The Board of Police Commissioners shall include the combination of following criteria when considering the establishment of residential on-street handicap parking, which includes, as one of the criteria, the availability of off-street parking. The ordinance does not state the existence of off-street parking prohibits the commission from approving a on-street handicap parking space, which Mr. Fulton understands will not be his exclusive parking space. Based on the information and factors I have shared with you today, I am requesting this commission approve Mr. Fulton's application to have a handicap parking space placed on Minnesota Avenue within the vicinity of the rear exit entrance of 77 Louisiana Avenue. Thank you. And if the chair or the commissioners have any questions, I'd be more than happy to do my best to answer them.
Thank you, Councilmember Pereira. I'd like to move on to the other folks that requested to speak. And if you have anything to add to what the council member just came across with, please feel free to do that. If you would just like to state for the record that you are in favor of this request, you can do that as well. So I'll start with Ms. Barbara Werner. Are you on the call?
Can you tell her how to unmute herself?
Oh, yeah.
Star 6.
Ms. Werner? There is a mute button probably on the bottom left of your screen.
Oh, no. These are seniors. They're on phones.
They're on
Oh, they're on
phone.
phone.
Star
I'm sorry.
They're
Yeah.
seniors.
It's star 6. We'd like to try pressing star 6. I mean, we understand, why you're here.
I just did it, star 6.
Oh, there you go. We got you.
Okay.
Okay, ma'am. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Well, Mr. Fulton is a veteran. The man can barely go. He can hardly walk a stair step. Like Maria said, he has a crutch, he has a walker, a cane, and he barely can go. He can hardly make it from my back door to the street. Plus, he just came out of the hospital about 3 days ago with the COPD, his back. There's a little everything. And this man is a veteran. He has been in the Army for 8 years. And nobody's trying to help him. We only asked for a handicap sign on Minnesota Avenue. That's it.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
And another thing Marie mentioned about this flooding over here with this water. I had 2 cars flooded out. No one gave me a dime for it. Now I'm stuck with paying for another car.
Okay, that's unfortunately, that's not something that this board hears.
Okay,
but,
I understand. Okay.
Okay. I'll move on to Mr. Fulton. Are you there?
No, he's out. He's sleeping. He doesn't take his
Oh,
medication.
okay.
And
No,
went to sleep.
that's fine. That's fine. We
Okay.
have Miss Mary Goss, is it?
Yes, right here.
Okay,
Mary?
ma'am. Anything you'd like to add, or we know you're on the call in favor of this?
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Mary Goss. Well, no, I would not like to add anything because I think Marie and Barbara said the same thing I would say.
Okay.
You know, we were just trying to get a sign on the corner of Minnesota, the end of the condo associate parking lot. And this would give him a closer walk to the door to come and keep him have to walk all the way from Louisiana Avenue to 77. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's about it.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. We have Miss Michelle Small.
Yes, hi, how are you?
Good evening.
Good evening. Yes, I'm in favor for Mr. Fulton to have, the handicap, sign put up for him,
Yes,
for the
ma'am.
handicap parking.
Okay. All righty. Miss Adriana Aristi, is that correct?
Yes, my name is Adriana Aristi. Everybody have a good night. I live in 73 Pennsylvania Avenue, and I am a mother of a 30-year-old handicapped. My son is handicapped, and I can completely understand the difficulties for Mr. Fulton when you have to walk far from where you live to go out of your house. I'm lucky to have 2 parking spaces in my driveway for my car and my husband's car. That way we can deal taking my son to the doctors and his appointments. I completely understand his situation, and I think that it's the right thing to do, to put a handicap parking for him to make his life easier. And being in the place where he lives, there is no space in parkings over there in the back where so many cars, so many apartments, just with 1 parking space. That is the right thing to do. And I would like the board to approve that for him. Thank you very much. Everybody have a good night.
Thank you very much. And lastly, we have Miss Helen Olga Losek.
Hi, good evening, commissioners. My name is Helen Olga Losek, and I am in favor of Mr. Fulton getting the handicap sign. This individual has multiple disabilities, and the fact that he is a veteran that he gave for his country, it's the least that we could do for him. I did tour the location the other day, and the back rear of 77 Louisiana Avenue is a shorter access for Mr. Fulton if the sign was placed on Minnesota Avenue. And I am in favor of him. This would make his life much easier, seeing that he has multiple disabilities. So please help him in getting this sign. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you to everybody that stayed on the call tonight. We appreciate your patience, and I'm sure Mr. Fulton appreciates your friendship. With that, I'd like to move over to on the agenda, the first item under 9B. These are requests for the city engineer's office not to approve the following traffic requests. And this is the installation of a handicap parking sign at 77 Louisiana Avenue. Assuming that the board will move to deny the request of the city traffic engineer, which is to recommend installation of the handicap parking sign. I think we just need to stipulate that the sign needs to be located on Minnesota, around the corner from 77 Louisiana. Commissioner Lyons?
Yeah, I'd like to add, I was doing some work in that area of East Main Street, Noble Avenue, Minnesota Avenue today. And I knew this was coming up on our agenda. So I traveled down Louisiana Avenue and looking at the condominium as stated by Councilwoman Pereira, this unit 77 is set so far back. It is addressed at 77 Louisiana. However, he literally lives on Minnesota Avenue. It's probably 50 feet, no more than 60, his door to the spot where this handicap should be. It is a dead end street. There's only one residential home, and it's further up towards Huntington Turnpike. It's across the street from Korea. This is all the way in the back, just before the mouth of what appears to be like a cul-de-sac, but in actuality, it is a parking lot for the rest of the Eastwood condos. Without, if any of you was to travel and you see it, it's as clear that this, if any in the city, deserves to have a parking, a handicap parking spot in that area. For this guy with his disability and the fact that the owners, I believe I understood it correctly, use the only parking space available for that unit. I would strongly move and put in a motion when it's appropriate that this be deny the request to deny and to approve the installation of this.
I'll take it that is a motion to deny the city traffic engineer's request and to approve a installation of a handicap parking sign around the corner from 77 Louisiana at the appropriate spot on Minnesota. Is that okay?
I'll second.
And it's been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. The motion's carried. Lieutenant O'Donnell, as far as the
I just
location.
want to say thank you to all the commissioners. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Oh,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Thank you. And thank everyone for being on the
Thank
call.
you.
All right, folks. And Lieutenant O'Donnell, could you just please follow through as far as the location that the sign needs to be installed?
Sure, I have that on the application and I will emphasize that for installation when I send the approval over tomorrow to public facilities. And hopefully they can get this sign up within a week
Mhm.
or sooner.
If you need any help in that area, please let me know, okay?
Yep, I will do, Commissioner.
All right, going back to the agenda order, there's no executive session for discussion of pending investigations. As far as internal affairs is concerned, we have the clerk's report on status of pending matters, so I'll turn it back over to the lieutenant.
So Commissioners, I did receive my monthly report from Internal Affairs, and I did send that to you. So that should be in your email boxes. If not, I can resend it to you again, but it's dated September 21st. And that's from Lieutenant Lanos.
Yeah, I received it. Thank you.
So we have another Barrows hearing coming up on October 12th and the 14th, and that's for 17I-206. That case was delivered to you well over a month ago. I have also at the request of the attorneys to possibly have a third date if we need it. And that's scheduled, and that would be your decision on the 21st, the 26th, or the 28th. I also was notified of 2 new internal affairs cases with sustained charges. So I'm making official notification to the board with OIA case 18I-130 and OIA case 18I-60. After we are through with 17I-206, I'll report to you the remaining cases and possibly have, following a board of inquiry, to review these cases and if we're to move them into full Barrows hearings. And that's all I have at this time.
Okay. Thank you, Lieutenant. Next item would be old business. And we had a request from John Arquidi, city engineer, to address the board regarding the speed hump policy. I don't believe he is with us this evening. Is that correct, Lieutenant?
He was invited because he did send me in a request that he would like to be placed on the agenda. I did emphasize to him again that, you know, in order for a policy to get approved, it's got to be sent to the board and to the city attorney's office.
Chris,
So
thank you.
Yeah, you're ready to inspect.
just waiting for a new policy.
Okay. Would you ask the city engineer, since he wasn't able to make it this evening, and we can table this to the next meeting, but meanwhile.
I'm actually here.
Oh, you're there. Oh, very good. Okay. Can you hear us, John?
Can you hear me now?
Are you 6786?
I am 6786, yes.
Okay, all right. The floor is yours.
All right, thank you very much. So first, I'd like to apologize for missing the last meeting that this policy was on the agenda. I was on vacation, so I was unable to attend. We sent a junior engineer who I think did pretty well, but you seem to have a number of questions about our policy, and I wanted to kind of get ahead of those and see where we could kind of meet in the middle on certain things that are non-starters for the board, and then on some things that are, you know, policy national kind of federal standard policies that we really can't be too flexible on. So I don't really want to go step by step through the policy unless you want me to. I'd like to talk some questions and take some thoughts on what you'd like to see changed, and then maybe we can go back and revise the draft and go from there. So
Maybe
I'd
you can
welcome
start
questions
by,
from the board.
maybe you can start by letting the board know what aspects of the policy cannot be changed, what's not flexible.
Sure. So I think the first section of definitions and things is pretty self-explanatory. It just goes through what a speed hump is, what a speed table is, what a elevated crosswalk is. I don't think there's probably not much question or debate on definitions. I would guess the process, I think, is what there was probably some questions on, and so maybe we can go through the process items and I could start kind of from the top. I don't know if everyone has this in front of them or not.
Sorry, go right ahead. Does anybody need any time? Excuse me. We good?
Yeah, can you give me a minute?
Sure.
Okay. You're good.
So review process, I think, application should be filled in its entirety, and we want to see all the proper documentation that's submitted with. So that's kind of an obvious thing. Each one will be reviewed on a case-by-case basis, and it's based on a number of things. I think you've got letters A through M. Some of the things that I think are required and kind of not something we should waver on are things like definitions of what speeding is and what we constitute speeding. I don't want to get into a situation where we're approving speed humps on roads where the 85th percentile speed is 27 miles per hour. That's not really a speeding issue. So I think we need to look at specifics on what that criteria is. We're using 10 miles per hour because that's generally what's used for, and Lieutenant O'Donnell could probably correct me if I'm wrong, but it's generally used on speed control and what is enforceable and what is finable and what sticks. So we use that number because it's kind of a national standard of what is enforceable and what is not enforceable. So when you're talking about a 25 mile an hour speed limit and there's cars traveling at 25, 28, 30, 32, 33, that's not necessarily excessive speeding. When you get over 35, then in a 25, now we're starting to talk about excessive speeding. So I don't know if anyone has any comments on letter A. Hearing none. Some of the other things that I think are important to look at are functional classification of a road. So, we don't necessarily want to put speed humps on a road that is utilized for moving large volumes of traffic. Park Avenue, for example, is probably not a road, being a minor arterial, that we want to put speed humps on.
Okay.
And generally speaking, nationwide, that's not a road that you would see a speed hump on. A speed table, perhaps, if you're talking about a problem intersection that's already signalized, then maybe you'd look at a speed table, but not necessarily, a speed hump mid-block on a Park Avenue stretch.
Okay.
Neighborhood support. I know this was I think a sticking point from what Chris from my office had told me, and the petition requirements. So we had a situation where we piloted a speed bump on a street. It was a local road, and the gentleman that petitioned it was adamant about installing speed bumps. We installed them, and he was upset, and his wife was upset that they were installed right in front of his house. Well, that just so happened to be the best place to put them. So even when you look at petition and who wants it on the street, sometimes people in the same household don't want it. So I think petition is important to get buy-in from the neighborhood and the people that live on that street. It's important to know that they actually want it, and not just, if there's 100 people on the street and 10 people want it and 90 people don't, that's probably not a situation where we want to put a speed hump. Maybe we want to look at a different means to control speeding there. And my phone closed up on me, I'm sorry.
Can I ask you a question now?
Sure.
Go ahead.
How do you determine where the speed hump goes? Based on the number of feet, distance, going up or
Yeah,
down?
So generally speaking, there's a rule of thumb that you space speed humps for effectiveness between 300 and 500 feet apart from each other. You don't necessarily want to put one right at a stop sign or right at a curve, because you already have a reduced speed there. So you want to put it in. So say, for example, you have a street that's 1,000 feet long between stop signs, and you want to control speeding in between that, in that street, in that section. You would either put one in the middle, or you put two, one at 300 feet and the next one at another 300 feet. That's just kind of rule of thumb on effectiveness, and that's kind of industry standard.
I have a comment
But
to make.
the field conditions are gonna. Yeah, sure, go ahead.
I travel quite a bit as a state marshal through neighboring municipalities similar to Bridgeport, Norwalk, and Stanford. And I can tell you, they're a lot closer than 300 feet. I see 3 or 4 on a street that's no longer than a quarter mile, all over Stanford, all over the place. And they're a lot closer than 300 feet. I'd say 100 to 150 at the widest. They really are effective in other towns. I know there's been remarks that they slow down emergency vehicles, but they work elsewhere. And we're not talking elsewhere in this country. We're talking neighboring communities with similar issues. Is it difficult to plow snow? Well, they're doing it there, and I don't see them wrecked every spring. I mean, it behooves me that this would not work throughout our city. I realize there's a cost. I realize there's a getting used to. I realize some people have to sacrifice. But to tell you the truth, I'd be the first one to put one in front of my house. I wouldn't mind it. I wouldn't mind cars slowing down that slow in front of my house. I know everybody complains, but not everybody wants to comply. But stop signs, red lights don't work. We just heard a guy on Anton Drive. He calls it violent speeding. I mean, I've been on Anton. It is quick. They do, when they have a long stretch where there's no stop signs, like there's a stop sign on Anton at Sunburst, but there's nothing until you reach the back end of Price Right, which is quite a long time. A speed hump on that street would drastically slow the traffic down. You have to slow down. We're also dealing with the citizens, these quads and these dirt bikes. I know they travel a lot of the main roads, but they do take side streets too. It slows down everything. They work elsewhere. There's no reason why it wouldn't work in Bridgeport. That's just my take.
Yeah, I think the very fact that we're here talking about a speed hump policy, and the fact that we've installed them around a number of schools already, I think that's the indication that the city and engineering department is on board with that. We just need to make sure that the criteria to install them is not so loose that we're putting them on every single street in the city. We want to make sure that we're not just becoming, carte blanche, putting speed humps everywhere. We want to be smart about it. We want to be, proper about it. We want to get buy-in from the neighborhood. We want to find out if there's actual excessive speeding on that particular street. We want to look at all those things in unison and kind of figure out where the right place to put them is. So I agree they work. We just have to figure out the proper way to install them and the proper way to implement them.
Yeah.
But
Hey,
to
John.
piggyback on what,
Go right ahead, Commissioner Cruz.
I'm sorry, to piggyback on what Commissioner Lyons just mentioned, we're talking about neighboring towns, right, or neighboring cities. Is it because it's a rule of thumb here in Bridgeport to have them stationed 300 to 500 feet apart versus much closer?
No, well, I mean, I'd love to get some examples of locations where they're closer than 300 feet. You know, maybe it's a park road. You know, you talked about a quarter mile and having 3 or 4 of them in a quarter mile. Well, a quarter mile is, you know, almost 1,500 feet. So when you do the math, that's every 300, 400, 500 feet. You know, I would love to see other locations where they're putting them closer. It just standard is, and this is nationwide. This isn't something that we're pulling. A lot of the things, the criteria in this list are things that we've pulled from other towns and nationally. It's not a speed hump policy that we created out of thin air and what we thought. Even though we are professionals and we do understand these things and we have traffic background, we have opinions and we have, you know, professional recommendations. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel of speed hump policy here. We're trying to take from other cities around. So
Now we had recently a petition come before us. It was not necessarily a speeding bump, but a petition requirement based on what the constituents in that neighborhood wanted. How do you verify that they actually went door to door and they got the majority vote? I mean,
well, if you
we
look
ended
inside
up
the
voting
package,
based on, well, we ended up voting on that statement that most of the people in the neighborhood wanted that. And most of the people in that neighborhood did not even know. Right? So when you talk
so
about
that's very
10 people
difficult.
in favor, that's difficult, right? Yeah.
That's very difficult. You're taking a petitioner. You know, if you look at the petition that's attached to the policy that we submitted, you know, it lays out, you know, we want a 2/3 majority of the people that live on that street, and we want them to, you know, sign their name and could they forge their name and their signature? Well, sure, I guess they could. You know, I don't know how we get past that. I know we get past that and not have some level of trust for the people on the street.
It's rare, but it's happened. I just thought I asked. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
One other thing I'd like to bring up, John, is we've gotten requests, or at least verbally, I've gotten requests from a couple of council people that these are streets that wouldn't qualify for, you know, probably the lack of traffic, if nothing else, but as a quality of life issue. And 2 streets in particular, one in the west end and one up in the north end, have issues with kids, particularly, or at least I'm told, people involved in drug deals flying down certain streets. Knowing that if you send someone out there to do a study, it would never come back as recommending a speed hump there. But when you start dealing with quality of life issues, is there any criteria that could work there, or is that something that the board would, us as a group would have to determine?
Well, I mean, I guess the first thing I would say is when we do a speed study, we put out sensors and we're taking a snapshot in time, right? So we're taking a week of volume, and it's all hours of the day. It's going to be Saturday at 10 a.m. It's going to be Monday at 3 a.m. It's Friday at 5 o'clock rush hour. So I mean, it's the whole picture of a week. Now it's 1 week, so it's not 52 weeks. It's the 1 week of the year. Does the 4th of July compare to Christmas? No. You know, it's colder weather. There's ice on the ground. There's people generally drive slower. We try not to do these speed studies in the winter and snow conditions. We try not to do a lot of the speed studies when schools are out in the middle of the summer. We want to try to get the best. And someone had mentioned on one of the other questions, I think it was the Anton Street question, that we did we do it during schooling at school hours? I texted Powell while I was on the call because I wanted to know. He didn't text me back. But generally speaking, we don't do studies for a street that during the summer hours, because we're not going to get a good indication of what the actual traffic is. There's no school buses. There's no kids college kids driving around town. You know, Anton's a good example. You want to collect that data and know what the actual speeding is. So we try to get a snapshot in time, and we try to get that full week, and so we get every hour of the day that possible in the week. But it's not a perfect science, obviously. Yeah, as far as the question on taking some liberties with the policy, look, I think we need to look at each location on a case-by-case basis. If the application is full, if it's got the petition, if we trust that the petition signatures are correct, and then we have a side detail of, well, look, there's a issue with whatever quality of life issue there is in the neighborhood that adds to the equation, then that's something that we have to look at. We can't just put our blinders on and just take policy and take everything at face value. We have to use some engineering judgment as well. I don't know if that answers your question, I think.
Well, partially, anyway, I'll take it.
How about the number of accidents on a street when determining whether a speed bump is merited as well as speed? Do they factor that in?
Sure. So, I mean, accidents, a lot of times we talk about accidents and we talk about traffic signals and stop signs, but accidents, of course, play a hand in this. If you've got a location that's got a high speeding issue and people are blowing a stop sign or people are blowing through a curve, that speeding issue is gonna cause an accident. So that's definitely something that we have to look at. I don't know that we put it in as a specific criteria. Let me look at this list, but I don't know that we did. But speeding causes accidents. So, you know, if we're looking at a speeding situation on Anton Street and there's been a ton of accidents at mid-block, then we've got to look at why those accidents are happening. We've got to look at what can prevent those accidents. So, you know, maybe the speeds are so excessive that they're causing an accident at 100 Anton Street, and it keeps happening. It keeps running through the fence. Well, then we've got to look at it.
John, I hear this a lot. It appears that, you know, it appears that we wait sometimes for accidents to occur to take action. And ironically, I mean, maybe, you know, when that study is done, you can't determine, or you can't determine that there are, you know, speeding rivalries going on at the time. But if there are constituents in the neighborhood that all agree that the speeding needs to slow down or change, is that taken into account? I mean, what would that gentleman have to do to make that happen if we are short of police patrol and they cannot be present there for consecutive days or a week? Because you know, it'll go away for a week, but it'll come back once they're gone, right? And
right,
because people are used to driving through the street and there are no speed humps. So do we have to wait for an accident or two, or the number of accidents within a certain time frame to determine, oh yeah, we have to do something about it? When we're talking about preventive measures to prevent those accidents from occurring when we know there's speeding taking place.
Yeah, so this is a difficult question to answer, and we come across this a lot when we talk about stop signs. And I know we're always very explicit because it's the federal requirements say you don't put a stop sign up for speeding. That's like no number one. So when we come across situations where we have a lot of you know, secondhand information about accidents, and those accidents don't come up as reported accidents, that's data that we really can't use. And from where I sit as an engineer, and I have a license, and that's the reason why I'm giving you a recommendation. I can't go by hearsay. I can't go by, you know,
Right.
there's someone has talked about accidents that have happened. I have to go based on data and based on facts. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing my job. I wouldn't be doing things lawfully and correctly. I'd be going against my license in essence. So we can only take the facts that we have before us. The anecdotal stuff is difficult to really utilize because it's anecdotal. So I mean, it's a tough situation to be in if you're sitting in my shoes, because I hear all the complaints about, oh well, you know, there's an accident here every week. Well, when I go to the state repository and I pull accidents, and there's 2 accidents for the year in this location, and I'm hearing about 10 accidents, what can I can't really base our opinion. We can't really base our opinions off anything but those 2 accidents because that's what's documented.
Right, I understand.
It's a tough situation.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, folks, any other questions for Mr. Aquidi? All right,
Mr.
John,
Roach,
thanks.
if I could ask,
please.
is there anything in particular that is problematic in this policy that we need to talk through more? And we don't need to do it tonight, and we don't need to take a vote on this tonight, but I'd like to get this policy moved in the right direction so we can start implementing. We have a number of requests already. We've been kind of utilizing school zones and some of those locations and taking some liberties with how we're proceeding with them because they are school zones, but we're piling up on speed hump requests, and we need to come up with a policy that's workable and that we can move forward with. So we don't necessarily have to make these decisions tonight. Again, like I said, if anyone wants to email me, call me. I think you all have my information. If you don't, it should be on one of the letters that Powell writes. My office number's on there. His email is the same as my email, just my name at the front. So I'd like to work through these issues and talk about what are the sticking points so we can move past them and get this draft implemented and approved by the board.
Yeah, a quick question.
Commissioner Diaz.
I'm not sure if what we're being asked is to divert our, are they asking for authority to like be able to do these approvals or denials without going through the board? I'm just trying to figure out.
No.
We've been doing the process.
No.
Okay. So what we would continue to do what we're doing right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Commissioner Diaz.
Yeah, I think we're just looking for some criteria to establish a policy. So we have an application. We could take an application for completeness, and we look at the criteria before us, and we make a recommendation, much like we do with handicap parking, right?
It's going to affect the recommendations.
Yeah. We're going to recommend for and against, and you ultimately have the decision power.
It was
nothing's
still
going to change with that.
Yeah,
It's just our recommendation.
All right. I was just it felt like I don't know. It just felt like we were being diverted to just one set of policy, and that's the policy we're going to file. When we know that every week we have a new reason, I guess we can say for why we sometimes go against what the recommendations are. I listened to the one on Louisiana tonight. It's a situation where we recommend based on ordinance, but you see something different in it, and you approved it. And that's the way things go. We understand that. We're just trying to do our jobs to recommend to you based on our understanding and our expertise what we think we should recommend for and against. And then ultimately you as the board, you all are the legal traffic authority. You all make those decisions and determine what you want to do. Our recommendation is just that, a recommendation. Thank you.
Hey, John, I would like to thoroughly examine it and get back to you. Do you have a deadline for that?
Not really a deadline per se, just that, I mean, we're at the point now where we're at the end of the paving season. So we're going to do a couple more implementations, like I said, in and around schools this paving season. And we're not going to be able to do any permanent installs until the spring. So I'd like to move it forward, but we also have a little bit of time.
I just didn't have it in my packet, and if I didn't print it out, I apologize, but I didn't have it in front of me to thoroughly comment.
Yeah, no problem.
I will get back to you.
And I can send it again if necessary.
Thank you.
Commissioner Roach, if you need me to send it out again, and just let me know to who.
Let's do that.
Can we put this on the agenda, John and commissioners, for the October meeting then, for a approval process?
I'd say let's at least put it on, and if we come to that point, if it's not needed, it's a lot easier to take it off.
John, if you can send it to me again, I can get you on the agenda for the 19th meeting.
Sure.
I had a question too, Commissioner Roach.
Yes, sir.
I was just out of curiosity and kind of piggyback on Tom's questions about the speed bump or speed hump. Can we do like, we have temporary humps too, right? So I think what you're talking about is the permanent with the asphalt and everything else, but then there's those, I don't know if they're rubber, I don't know what they're made out of, but those temporary humps. If you have a situation where obviously the city engineering office is suggesting that we don't do something, we really believe that it should be done. We see a concern. Is there a way to do the temporary humps or whatever those things are and test them before we go out and splurge and do something more permanent?
Yeah, so there are temporary humps. I will say that it's actually more cost effective to do the permanent ones.
Okay.
You know, it's probably a third the cost. Now, that's not to say that we should just put permanent ones every single place. I think that there's probably some merit to putting them in a place where we're not quite sure, and we're experimenting with the idea of a speed hump at a location. I can't think of one that has been put before us yet that meets that, but the problem is ultimately it's gonna boil down to budget. So you know, just for argument's sake, if one of these speed humps costs $3,000 to install a standard permanent one, it's probably $10,000 for a temporary one. So we have to be kind of we have to keep that in mind when we're thinking about like a location where we might want to install it, and maybe we get one set of 3, you know. But then you're talking about a pretty substantial capital investment for a temporary speed hump that we're probably going to need to take out every year and put down. It's a manpower issue as well. So it's a tricky, it's a delicate balance, I guess.
I didn't realize the temporary were more expensive, to be honest with you. And I guess to the extent that, I mean, it's using your numbers, assuming that a temporary hump is $10,000 and a permanent is, say, as you put, $3,000, it almost seems to me that the permanent one should be able to be temporary if necessary. It sounds like it would be cheaper just to put a permanent one and remove a permanent one than to put a temporary one. So I don't know. It was just a question.
Yeah, I mean, there's other things that go into it. Obviously, you've got signage, you've got pavement markings, you've got a number of other things that go into the speed hump. And then if we were to put it in and have to take it out, it's going to cost just as much to take it out as to put it in. So maybe my 1/3 quantity is probably not accurate, but the rubberized temporary ones are quite expensive.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? John, thanks again.
Thank you, John.
Sure, no problem. Thank you for your time, everyone. Have a great night. I'll plan on being on in October.
Very good.
Thanks again. Good night.
Thank you, John.
Okay, moving on. Item number 6, correspondence. We have none. We have under item 7A, we have one letter of appreciation to the chief from Dr. Ralph Ford on behalf of Officers McLaughlin and Nieves for their outstanding work on primary election day at Dunbar School back on the 14th. Nothing under widows' pensions. Next are traffic requests. Those items under 9A, which is a request of the city traffic engineer to approve. We have 3 items underneath Roman numerals 6, 7, and 8. I'm sorry, 6, 7, and 10. First being update multi-way stop sign. The item was previously approved, so no actions necessary there. The other 2, 7 and 10, require the approval of the State Department of Transportation, so we'll be referring those to them. But I would entertain a request to combine and approve those other items underneath 9A. It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, those items are approved and And the other matters that needed to be referred will be referred. We've already handled item 9B, the first item. The second item underneath, and this is a request of the city traffic engineer not to approve, is the installation of speed humps on Waterview Avenue and Goodwin Street. I know we just approved installation of speed humps on Union Avenue and Stratford Avenue, and that's very close to Dunbar School. Does anybody have any questions or comments on item 9B2? According to the report claiming that Waterview Avenue does experience some minor speeding, but they don't meet the excessive speeding criteria.
And if I'm not mistaken, there's like 2 or 3 speed bumps right behind the school, aren't there, on Waterview? And then as you're getting close to Stratford Avenue, I'm not sure if it's a bigger one that belongs to Bass Pro or if it's ours. I don't know, but it's right behind Bass Pro. That's a wide one.
Yeah.
But I think there's only a short amount of space that doesn't have, like from the highway underpass to right about the school would be where it isn't. Am I right?
I couldn't tell you either way, to be honest with you, just off the top of my head.
I think that it's all the way from the underpass. You go towards the railroad tracks, and there aren't any by the yacht club, and you could take that curve, and then after the curve, right at the beginning of the school, I think there's 2. One
on Waterview.
I'm almost positive. I may be mistaken, but I know there's at least 1. And they're pretty sharp. I thought it was I wasn't speeding, but I was going, and it
hit it pretty good.
It's a bump. Yeah, it's a bump. It's not a
bump, right?
It's not like the one over by Bass that
right
over kind of.
Okay.
Just
anybody care to make a motion unless there's further discussion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, I'm assuming, is to approve
B2, approve the request.
Approve the request of the city traffic engineer, which is not to approve. Okay. Motion's on the floor. Is there a second?
Aye.
It's been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the request is approved. Unless there's anything else, Lieutenant O'Donnell, fellow commissioners, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Do we have any addendums that I'm missing on?
No, no, I sent a few emails today regarding the matters we addressed, just for FYI information regarding Louisiana Avenue and that. So I'm all set on my end.
Okay, very good. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
No.
Meeting is adjourned. Commissioner Farrell, be careful driving.
Commissioner, thank
Yes,
you.
indeed.
Lieutenant.
Good night.